Now, the next element we're going to be looking at here is what's called the search region. And as you might guess, that's the area outside the feature region that After Effects is going to be looking at when the object moves around in the frame. Because, of course, as you remember, we have a fairly active frame here, a lot of motion and so forth going on. Now, you would think perhaps that you just want to search the whole frame, but in fact that's actually very inefficient, and it's going to slow down our tracking process considerably if we were to try to search the entire frame for this little element within that entire frame. So usually, in fact, we want to get the search area in, the search region, fairly tight around the feature region. And the thing is that even though this, within a couple of frames, moves outside the search region itself will update every frame, so that as we search from frame to frame, it's going to be repositioning itself. This whole tracker is going to be repositioning itself in order to compensate for the motion in the frame. So the search region will also be repositioning itself, and we don't really need to worry about having to search a large region. There are times when we may need to adjust this, as you'll see a little later on, but for right now, in fact, we don't really want a huge search region all over here. We want something that's fairly small, fairly tight around that feature region. So the search region, you adjust that so that you get it outside the feature region, obviously, and just an area surrounding that. And if you need to go back and adjust it, you can do so, certainly. Now, let me zoom out again and get our hand tool back and just sort of reposition things. Here's our full-size frame again. Oops, wrong direction. There we go. And there we go. Reposition that. Let's just adjust things here a little bit so we can see the whole frame. There we go. Now, we have positioned our tracker on our feature, and we've adjusted our feature region and our search region. So what we can do right now is just try a track and see what happens. So to do that, you go over here to the tracker panel and you look at the analyze controls here. And all we need to do, really just to start with here, is analyze forward, and let's just see what happens. As I click this play button here, what looks like a play button, After Effects will start the tracking process, and we'll go through here frame by frame looking for that feature and tracking that feature. So let's just click it and see what happens. Now you see that we had a little zoom in, but that's okay. And as we are going through here, you see that this is actually tracking that pretty tightly. It looks pretty good, as a matter of fact. It's following it pretty well because we have a nice strong feature here to track. So let's just take a look here and see what's going on as we track through here. You can see that the hummingbird is kind of looking around curiously, but the tracker itself is staying pretty well on course as it's moving around in the frame. And as you see, there are times within those frames when it's moving pretty radically, but because each frame, the motion of each frame is within our search region, we're still doing okay. And so in fact, you can see that from frame to frame, as we're going through here, we have really a pretty nice tight track. There's a little bit of jitter in there, but not too bad. Now we're almost at the end here, and what's going to happen is that the bird is going to fly off, which is okay. That's not really our concern because the fence stays in place. Okay, so we have our track, and we're just going to scroll back through here and take a look at our frames and look at the tracker and see how it's done. And as we saw before, the tracker is actually sticking pretty tightly onto that fence. Now we could go back and tweak that a little bit more, but I think that this is good enough for the purpose of stabilization. So now that we've done our track, in our next video, let's actually apply this to the stabilization function and see what happens.